Hey, FNRad listeners, if you've been thinking about joining our Patreon, I highly encourage you to pause the show and do it now. You get discounts on gear from Wired 1910, New Greens, and more. Plus, you help make the show possible. Thanks. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Skyview Campers, Never Summer's innovative take on the tiny home. Designed and built in beautiful Colorado, check out skyviewcampers.com. Wired Snowboards builds quality snowboards by hand 10 minutes away from my house. Visit wiredsnowboards.com and order one today. Fixed bindings are easy to adjust, long-lasting, high-performance bindings built to have less impact on the environment. Check out fixedbindingco.com. Rip Curl outerwear, strength, durability, and performance. Designed to search further in the snow, head to ripcurl.com and check out the Anti-Series jacket. I can't wait to rock this thing. New Greens, 100% organic, vibrant green juice. Buy yourself some at newgreens.com and use code FNRad at checkout for 20% off. And for a chance to try New Greens for free, listen to the end of the show. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop, best selection, best prices, Vancouver's premier snowboard shop. Go to boardroomshop.com and use code FNRAD10 to save 10% off your next purchase. Support also comes from Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, Cypress Mountain, the Pro Standard GoPro accessories, and our friends at 1910. You can use code FNRAD at checkout for 20% off at 1910.com. The Havens, a center for transformational learning located on beautiful Gabriola Island. Plan a visit at haven.ca and use code FNRAD at checkout to save 10% off their Come Alive program. Sean Kearns is a returning guest to the show who's always got something fucking rad to say. In this episode, we talk for 2 hours about where Sean is in his life right now. It's deeply inspiring to me to see Sean working so hard at continuing to be the amazing human he authentically is. So stoked to have him back on the show. Here's the one and only Sean Kearns.
So just take a couple breaths, and this is just to center us. Like I'll get into this, but so just close your eyes and breathe. I'm going to do the same, just to bring ourselves present, and just take a couple breaths. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, this is something I find really interesting is, if I think a big problem, a message that's handed down is that to be free is to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And actually the only time I've ever been free is when I'm fully committed to something. So the reason I'm saying this is, if you and I commit to 90 minutes or 120 minutes of fully turning our phones off, not worrying about external things, families, Christmases, all the shit, and we fully commit and agree to a couple hours of hanging out together, then actually if we fully commit, there's a sense of freedom that comes with that we're not going to be worrying about anything else, the future, the past, nothing, and we can actually just be free to be here for an hour and a bit. You up for that?
I'm up for it.
Okay, cool. So take a big breath. And me too. I'm going to feel my ass in the chair, bring myself present, and I'm fully committed to hanging out with you and answering questions for the next, hour and a bit. And the intention is to be here now and to be present and not be distracted with all the outside world. So free to be here. So there you go.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. You asked me earlier in the car ride what my intention was. And I think I eventually landed on, I want to take a snapshot of Sean Kearns right now in his life, because I've been following, you as a snowboarder for 30 years. And then I've been following you as a person for the last 5 years. And I think there's something going on right now that's important, I think, for people to see and for you to see maybe in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, looking back and going, holy shit, that's where I was right then. Mm-hmm. You're in an interesting part of your life right now.
Oh, you think so, right?
Well, you've had an interesting life the whole way through is what it looks like to someone on the outside. That's the story I'm telling myself, is that any preconceived notions I had about you went out the window when I met you, basically.
Yeah. That's well. What preconceived notions did you have? Because
If you're curious, I'll tell you for sure.
Well, yeah, no, I would love to know. Like, you mean like before you met me?
Before
had we ever met before? Like,
in passing at the Ivanhoe when the pool table light came down on the pool table and exploded everywhere. I believe you told the bouncer that guy did it. You just pointed randomly at me, and I was like, I didn't do it. And then I was there with the bouncer going, dude, you think I wouldn't have ran out with all those guys if I had done it?
Okay, yeah. Okay. So anyway, I am curious how did you perceive me before you met me?
So I had a hook on Sean and Sean. That was where my brain stopped evolving with the Sean Kearns story. I was like, these are two Canadian dudes, best friends, inseparable, and they showed the world the truth and started the momentum for the Jackass era, whatever you want to call it, right? That was the commercial version of what the whiskey movies turned into in my mind. So for me, I was like, he's scary. That would have been that if I had to do one word, it's like, this is the kind of guy doesn't take any bullshit and is not going to let you get away with any cringing, whinging, or inauthentic behavior in front of him. But also that might just like put a story on you like that and eviscerate you, and you just got to leave.
So that's the nice version. What did you actually think? Like because I actually thought of this. I thought of this in I think it was the first podcast. I remember, and I got no heat about it. I just found it to be interesting. I remember you asked me something along the lines. It was like, it was along the lines of, like, I think it was around the conversation. The context of the conversation was, helping Sandslow and getting sponsored, or helping other, people coming up. And then I think I remember you saying something along the lines of like, knowing you, how did you get over yourself enough to help others or whatever? And actually I was like, oh, well, you don't actually, like, now I'm like, oh, you don't know me at all, because I didn't have to get over myself to help other people. And the reason this came up, I've really been thinking about this because you were asking about True Life and Mike Hatchett and some things he said. And something you don't know about me is that I'd like you to know, or anybody to know, is that I have this ability somehow to get my ego out of the way and be open to feedback and be open to, now, sure, at different times, wrong day, wrong time, wrong, whatever, sure. But ultimately, like a lot of people don't know, when I made those movies, and it was built over time, my process, but what I built into my process was in the final screenings of those movies, True Life or whatever, I would bring in people to critique them, and not just randoms. I'd bring in people who didn't like me, people who wanted to give it to me, people who fucking hated me. And I'd call people up randomly, competitors, and be like, would you be willing to come in and critique this thing? And they're like, fuck, hell yeah. And I would take them through a process of watching it and then watching it again and this whole thing. And I'd be able to sit there and be able to separate my personal feelings from basically gold, like the feedback of gold. Now, of course, I would have my, I'd say, what do you like, what you don't like? And of course, at some points, it would be too late in the game to change a song, or to change a part too much, or something has to be in. But for the most part, so I had my own sheet of like, this will change, this gonna happen, not gonna happen.
Right.
And so when you were saying that thing about like, how'd you get out of your own way? I'm like, dude, I've always seen that as an ability to get because ego and pride can really fuck a person up, and it's fucked me up a lot. And when I'm in a professional, role, I can really look past that stuff, because there's like an end goal that I got to get to, and I will do anything and everything in service of making it the best I can in a professional role. And I don't know, it's a skill, like a radical honesty, being able to be radically honest with myself to get my ego and my feelings out of the way.
That's incredible.
It works. It works.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wrote, after I'd read some of your notes, like a kind of skeleton outline about the evolution of Sean Kearns. And I broke it into 4 or 5 categories: the crew, the opportunities, and the experiences, and the choices that you were able to make. How did those, I mean, that's a huge question, but that's basically the question that I would love to hear the answer to, is like, how have you evolved over time? Like, you just told me that you started in a spot where it wasn't apparent to me that was where these movies were coming out of. I thought they were coming out of pure ego. Like, hey, look at us. Right? Like, which is a fair assessment when someone's breaking bottles on their heads and really doing harm to themselves. For me, my internal monologue on that is like, attention. Hey, look at me. There's something going on.
Well, there's a big difference between the foreign movies and the whiskey movies.
Right. So here's where I'm stuck, right? That's why I say.
There's an evolution.
When I get stuck thinking about Sean Kearns and whiskey, it's such a small sliver of what you did in the snowboard industry proper. And it's actually only a year, really, or 2 of a 20-year career in snowboarding, a 30-year career.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't want to bump up against my shit here. I'd like to hear about Kearns and the journey.
Well, it helped me to know, like, so if you were, like, for your listeners, I want to know what someone would, it's too bad we can't get some questions. I'd like to know what people would want to know.
Yeah.
And you did ask me something about, like, where I am where I am now, right now. And it's funny, man, the whole snowboard career thing and all that stuff. It's just that's just a part of me and a part of my life. But something that I can't deny is, so basically I've been skateboarding since I was 8. Sealand, we just went and checked out Sealand. I started skateboarding when I was 8, and I had a proper skateboard, like a wide one with indies and everything, when I was 11, 12. And then like, so, I mean, you're tapping on developmental years there. And I think actually my dad gave me my first skateboard when I was 7, and it was like, whatever. I think I even have a memory of maybe even like getting on one of those clay wheeled Black Knights when I was 6. So, dude, This is developmental year stuff. And I gravitated towards skateboarding from those times, and then Sealand down the street. So, where I'm at right now is I took a hiatus from snowboarding and skateboarding and surfing, which have been part of my life from 8 years old. And I've been sponsored skateboarding and working in the industry since I was 13. So from 13 to 40, I was receiving a life from skateboarding. Like that was my identity. I'm a skateboarder, and I stand sideways, left foot forward, always, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Totally. And just like, and then, I've taken a hiatus. I mean, I still skate and I still snowboard, but I needed to have a break from how I looked at those things. And then I started, I went into like a really dark hell place. So I basically was like, I don't know what the fuck's happening here, but I need to go do something different here. So I've been on this path since 2007. 2007 is when, I've always been interested in therapists and therapies and growing and learning. Like, even if you ask JP during the forum movies and stuff like that, like, I was always into like self-help. Like, why the fuck not? Like, it just seems, it gets such a shitty name, and it's like,
right.
But actually self-help, like, doesn't seem like a bad idea. Maybe I could learn something. So I was doing some of that stuff. And then, so I've always had an interest. And then I started going and like I went from like seeing a therapist to then learning about some stuff, because I definitely had some fucked up stuff going on. And then, as you can see, I mean, it's not whiskey one is like, it's pretty much it's like, it's pretty apparent that there's some stuff going on. And then it's just so weird to talk about that. Like, what a fucking long time ago. What a lot of pain and what a lot of fucking joy too. Like, anyway. But then I ended up, going into, going from like one-on-one therapeutic settings to actually to being part of, and there's a lot going on in groups. I really love people sitting in circles. It's funny. Call it circle, call it a crew, call it a group, whatever. But there's really something that it reminds me of skateboarding. Like I just started going in and like I started looking around and I'm like, you kind of got to try all aspects of this thing to kind of learn it. And the human condition, basically, I've just put myself in so many different situations and trainings and to ad nauseum. And I think like what skateboarding taught me and is my perspective is it taught me how to fall and get back up. It taught me the value of learning what not to do to be able to value what to do. So I've spent, you say I'm at an interesting time right now. I would say I've spent the last, 14 years banging around doing equally as much what I shouldn't be, what doesn't work as to what does work to be able to fine tune what is working. And it's a very, experiential way of learning. Let's just put it this way. I haven't sat in too many motherfucking classrooms. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I've sat with hundreds, if not thousands of people from all different, whatever. So I don't know.
I really like I like this crew thing and circle. I hadn't put that together yet, but like when I think of skateboarding, when I came into it, the Powell Bones Brigade was like, that was the thing that just like inspired, like, oh, let's put our own crew together. So me and Dwayne and Kari and Craig, my friends, were like, I wanted to be like the quirky one. I'm going to be like the Lance Mountain one. This guy's really good. He likes vert. He's the cab one or Tony or whatever. There was like this feeling of like a crew was like a cool thing to put together. But the experience of actually having the crew seemed to me, if there's anything I look back on nostalgically, it's like when we would like pile in a car and Andrew Pommier would drive us in his dad's van to some spot. And then we'd session and you'd be looking at the group through the eyes of like, oh shit, there's a bank over there. That's, Kari should go maybe ollie down that, or I'm going to want to try and do a tail block on that, that kind of feeling. But then
I know that feeling.
The Forum 8 is just like, to me, surfing's the pure sideways stance board sport because it was never trying to be anything. Skateboarding was, street surfing. It was even called sidewalk surfing. Snowboarding had all these things to live up to. There was already 6 skaters. There was already big wave surfers. There was already people who had dedicated their life to saying, fuck you, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to live on a beach in California and fucking fish and be a waterman. Like snowboarding had so much to aspire to that like right out of the gate, it was like, are you sponsored? Who are you sponsored by? What's going to be the cool thing? We had a future that we were aspiring to because we'd already seen something. Is that fair to say? And then, so because of that, Forum 8 is like a fully formed crew with expectations in a marketing sense almost, but also like probably real guys in a real crew, like having a real fucking fun time.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's something that I, doing all this. I don't even know. I don't even like the term mental health. I can't stand that term because I don't even believe that. Anyway, get into that maybe later, but just working in the field of like the healing arts, for lack of a better term, I call it being with people. That's it. I like being with people, and I found that being in people in groups is way better than staring at a person in an office. And it's funny. I just, in that field, I still, even when I work with people, and I've met some incredible people. You've met some of the people that they're just incredible. And I don't think he'd mind me talking about this, but there's still, I think, because I grew up in the industry I did, which is like standing sideways, being blessed to be able to stand sideways and it being easier than walking for me. That there's still, when I'm talking to people in the field of any people, if you haven't fucking stood sideways for a big chunk of your life, there's always going to be something between us there's an understanding that we don't have of each other. Whereas if I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to JP, or I'm talking to Sluggo, or I'm talking to whoever, fucking there's a body felt base understanding of each other that, especially if you've like, took full top to bottom vert slams or whatever, it's like, there's something that there's an understanding. And so I understand people I remember one time JP and I, cause he's worked on himself and stuff. And at one point of this thing, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but at one point he just looked over at me and said, they'll never know. Like there was people around, super good people, but he's like, no one will know what we've done, dude. No one will, because, and that's true, just because me and him had such an intimate experience of ripping through the mountains and all the traveling and the millions, like the millions of miles we together. It's like they'll never know. And it was really cool because my friend Linda was there and she's like, you're right. We will never know. We'll never know what you two have seen and been through. And it was just such an acknowledgement of like, it's not that we're better. It's not that whatever, but this is what I say to people. It's so important that you keep in contact with people from the times of your life when you were doing well. If that person was a dick person, grab your big boy pants, go fucking heal that relationship. Tell them you're a dick. You're right. I was wrong. But those relationships are so important. They are for me. Like I've gone back and just fixed and repaired and cleaned up, or just even just gotten a little uncomfortable and been like, dude, I miss you and I want to hang out. And it's not about going back, living in the past and fucking, oh, those were the days, bro. It's more about this person gets me and got me at a time when I was so fucking solid in my life. And solid was sitting in a car with my friends, pretending to be the Bones Brigade.
Commitment.
And,
you were
dude,
committed to that.
Oh,
thing.
And
That's
it was like, I remember jumping in a car, leaving Sealand and going to China Creek. It was my first skate trip. One guy Colin Ruloff had a station wagon. It was my first skate trip and it was across Second Arrows Bridge. Dude, that was it. I was sold. I was like, this is it. I had my own little thing, my skateboard, my tool, my weapon, whatever it was designed, it was mine. And I was part of this crew. And if I leave this planet teaching anybody anything or wanting to share anything, is like, create a crew. We need, like, it's so fucking stupid to not have a crew. And it's so sick. I've had that experience of being with the Forum 8. I would say that that's when I truly got into my own, was when Raul Reese, like, I didn't make those fucking movies, dude.
Right.
A company made those movies. And same with the whiskey stuff. I didn't make those movies. There was so many pieces and everything. And one of the worst things I've ever done to myself is when I've remembered the past, thinking that I've done it on my own. And then I think I need to do whatever moving forward on my own. Well, I've never been successful on my own. Like, I've never been fulfilled on my own. I've been successful on my own, not fulfilled. It's just something about doing it in a crew of people, like-minded people, that are committed. That's a thing. Like, you got to be committed, and you need to know, like, you put me in front of a room full of snowboarders. I just saw this picture the other day, and it was, for some reason, I knew how to do this. After the Forum stuff, and then when I was doing a Mac Dog movie, and it was like when we were scrapping with Forum, longer story, but I somehow knew, I didn't know, I don't know how I knew this, but I knew that I needed to look people in the face and say, are you committed for the year? So I built this crew for Shakedown. It's like Lucas Huffman and John Cooley and all these dudes. Sean White was there. And everybody, if you're going to be in this movie, you need to fly to San Diego after I've talked to y'all. I need to stare you in the fucking face and go, I'm down for this movie for the next 12 months.
Wow.
No boozing, no this, no that. I'm fully committed. And I need to know that you're committed. I don't want to hear about your fucking girlfriend. I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about that. Like, this is your number one priority. Scared the shit out of Sean. Sean had to come with his team manager, Renee. It was pretty funny. I don't know if Sean was scared, but he wanted in, but they just had other plans for him.
Yeah.
So whatever. But if you're committed, truly committed, there's a sense of freedom that comes like, dude, so many answers just go away when I'm fully committed to a direction.
I love this.
It's freedom. And it's, all of a sudden these calls and things that are considered distractions, if you're committed, they're not even distractions. So, I've been committed to learning about this healing thing and working with people in all these different modalities. Well, I've just been all in, every penny, every ounce of every resource I've had. I never wanted to work in the field. That was never my intention. It just seems that I get to keep working on myself if I work in the field.
That's
so
rad.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how I got on that rant, but we need each other. Lone wolves get slaughtered, dude. And I can attest to that myself. Like, when I was out there doing it on my own, thinking I couldn't tell people what was going on, didn't have a crew of people around me to tell the truth to. Holy fuck. It didn't go well, So I believe we need others. We need other people. We need people to bounce things off. We need the best thing I've done is create a solid group of people around me that know me as well as I know me. And so.
Right.
Yeah. And that takes work. It doesn't just happen overnight. Like, hey man, no, it's like, dude, are you willing to show up in this way? 'Cause I am. And it's pretty uncomfortable sometimes.
Right. And you're not always up for it. That's the thing, is that if you know yourself, you're like, this isn't me today. Today I'm somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of worries and I can't get rid of them. I can't shake them, to be honest with someone right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, and that's why, I say you need, there's building a crew and going towards a movie project, let's say.
Sure.
That's one thing. But on my daily, I've got 5 people that know me pretty well, and I'm a piece of work. So I think it takes 5, meaning I got stuff coming up and and one of those 5 has to be me.
Wow. Cool.
One of them has to be me. One of them has to have my best interest at heart.
Sick.
And that one usually has the balls to call the other 4 if something's going on. I also don't just make it all doom and gloom. I also call them and surround myself when we're having a good time as well.
Sick.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lost art to have a community around you and an honest community.
There was something, this is a cool spot for me to interject this. I take for granted that everyone saw the whiskey documentary, but that was something that you shared with me privately. Thank you. You're like, don't show anyone. And I didn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Which was, but I think that documentary shows the bigger community of what happened. First of all, it tells the story of whiskey in a way.
This is water,
that's
by
the way. Yeah, or you'd
For real.
be hammered.
It's water. Yeah.
But it tells the story of whiskey from a perspective of, it was ground zero for, like I said, the jackass guys. So that community of those guys rally around telling this story. That project's just killed now, right? Like, we're never going to see that whiskey.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, it was put together. Lauren Graham was directing it, and then this guy invested in it. It was put together with all good intention. The missing piece, I think, was Sean and I. We were willing to go along for the ride, and kind of but both of us are pretty taxed about the whole thing.
Sure.
Didn't want it all brought up,
right?
And now I'm really glad it didn't, because it was brought up in a different vein. It was more, I don't give a shit that people think it like we started Jackass. It's not what it was about. Like, I
Right.
don't need any of that shit in my life. Like,
Right.
thank God. I mean, you looked at those guys, dude. It doesn't seem like it's working out so well for some of them, right? And it was never came from a place like that for us. But and now I if there was ever a documentary about that, it would be, how I could put my lens on it now of what was actually happening and what was going on, and how, Whiskey One's the most honest movie I've ever seen.
Right.
It's honest.
Right.
We were hurting,
Yeah.
and we weren't willing to hide it. We didn't know exactly how, but we just did not know how to hide it. We didn't want to hide it. We just didn't know how to hide it. We had to be us. And it was honest, but it was also a lot of pain. Like, there's a lot of pain in our bodies. I still have pain in my body. So it's like, there's better ways to show it, better ways to deal with it these days, let's say.
I'm curious about, and for the listeners, they're not going to have this frame of reference, but the Haven where I went and did a 5-day circle with you, the founders are these really interesting dudes, Ben and Jock. Mm-hmm. And I read up the first few chapters and skipped ahead a few chapters in the story of the two of them. But you actually got to meet them. And at one point, for whatever reason, I'd love to know why, you actually showed them whiskey. And then how did they react to that? So but maybe some context for the listeners. Who are Ben and Jock? And then the story of showing them the whiskey movie and what happened.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how I got there. So I had done a bunch of therapy with a woman in Vancouver, because I knew I had some fucked up stuff going on. Like, and I worked with this therapist that was a ton of money. This is when I was making the 4 movies. So I had the money. I'm like, you might as well go for the best. And I got put on her, and thank God I found her, because she could see no bullshit. This fucking woman just fucking put me in the hot seat. And what she saw was I was willing. She was so smart that the first time I called her to book an appointment with her, she called me back 20 minutes later and said, I don't think it's a good fit. Wow. I said, why not? And she said, you're just not saying, I've been doing this for a long time, and some of the stuff you're saying is not the right, So I convinced her. That was brilliant, because I had to step up a gear, and if anybody pays money to go outsmart a therapist, you're just fucking stupid.
Right. Right.
I know friends of mine who've done that, and they're like, yeah, man, I had her fucking did it. And I'm like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. You're paying them money, and what, you got one over on them? I don't think so. So anyway, I went and saw her. I spent a ton of money. I think I really went for it with her for like 6 months, and I had some breakthroughs. And breakthroughs, like, why do you do therapy? Well, one day I walked out of there and the leaves and shit had color, and before they didn't. So it's worth it. Like, to have a better life, to see things more clearly, whatever. And then my brother went, and my brother, I did a bunch of therapy or whatever. And then my brother went to this place called The Haven. I didn't know anything about it.
Rad.
I'd had a big shift with this woman named Beatrice in Vancouver. And that took, I think, man, at least 6 months, maybe 10 grand, and like a lot, like 3-hour appointments, $200 at a time, $200 an hour,
wow,
like $180 an hour. Like, but I was going for it.
Yeah.
Like, there was, and, like, I really didn't just want to end up in AA. I wanted to understand, why the fuck do I need to hurt myself? Mm-hmm. Why am I hurting myself? Like, I'm hurting myself. Like, it's pretty obvious. Dysfunction will be an understatement for relationship skills. And so I just want to know, anyway, my my brother went and did this course, and, I get this call. I didn't really know, I was traveling around the world and shit. And I get this call, and fuck, I'll start crying. Like, there's this voice on the other end of the phone, and it's like, it's my brother. And I'm like, his voice is soft and he's like, hey man. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, and it was just like something I'd always wanted, just this like connection with my brother instead of like two brothers doing this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And we had it rough. I'll speak for me. I had it rough growing up. I'll speak. And I'm probably speaking at a turn that whatever, that I'm talking about, that he went and did this course, but we talked and it was like, holy shit. Like he is somewhere after 5 days of this course that it took me 6 months and 10 grand of full commitment. Now everybody's different, you know, whatever. But I was like, okay, what's going on at this place? But the part that was really cool about that was, so my brother had this opening, I think it was 2004.
Wow.
And my dad was living in Victoria and he drove past my brother's place. And they had this amazing conversation, like a clearing, basically. They cleared up. Apparently, I don't even know. I just heard it was an amazing conversation. And then my dad drove. Fuck. Fuck. And then, and then he drove to Whistler, like, right from there to visit me. And he'd never seen like what I had achieved really. And then, so he had that conversation with my brother and he drove to Whistler and hung out with me. And then he stayed the night, hung out, and he ended up having a heart attack and dying on that trip in my driveway in Whistler with me and him alone. Like my dad had his heart blew up. So I will always be indebted to the place where my brother went for 5 days so they could have that bonding. Mm-hmm. And then, after that, my dad dying and that whole situation, that was about as fucking hectic as it gets. And I ended up, I think I had the spiritual idea because I spent so much time in the mountains and everything, you know, I'd see an eagle and I'd be surfing and shit and I'd know it's my dad and everything, but I did not have the humanity stuff at all. So I think I started to slide after that. Like I just didn't deal with life so well after that. Like I was angry and fucking all kinds of stuff that it just bubbled up a bunch of stuff so anyway, that's a long fucking intro into, so 2007. So I knew my brother had that thing. 2007, I ended up going to the Haven and checking this place out. Cause
was it gnawing at you that whole time, 2004 to 2007?
No,
or were you
like
just,
I think I no, there was definitely some, in hindsight, there's some pretty messy stuff, but then you know, Burton bought Forum, mm-hmm. and then Forum came, or Burton bought Forum, and then Forum asked me to come make another movie for them, which was that. And then I was like, you know, they wanted me to do it. So I just named a good price and whatever, and we worked it out. I'm like, so there was that. That was a big distraction for me to do that. But I had some pretty brutal, like I remember I think we spent a month in Stockholm and fuck, I got like, I was using alcohol pretty hard to, you know, hurting myself. Ultimately, that's what pouring solvent into my body is. Ultimately, it's hurting myself. Yeah. Never works out for me. So, you know, a short-term shitty, that probably quite possibly the world's worst fucking pain reliever. It works great but then it comes at a fucking solid price. So, anyway, I know I'm all over the place, but
no, you're not.
I did that. And then I think what happened is I turned all of that energy into hustling, making money, focusing. So did the Forum movies, started Infamous Management, music licensing company, like buying properties, bought a hotel and bar with Devin. That was like a little whatever. It was more of a novelty thing, but just whatever, making shit happen, just putting all my energy into like climbing the hill of success, and then started that company with Apple, which was gnarly. That was like 14 months of grinding. And then we finally got granted the first ever private studio rights for iTunes, which is fucking nuts. And then all of a sudden, all my competitors became my clients. You don't know this story, do you?
I don't.
Yeah. So me and Jim Martin, he's the guy who was doing the music licensing. We went after Apple for 14 months. Apple was like, we don't deal with independents. So Volcom, Taylor Steele, TB, MacDog, you couldn't get your movies on, because if you think about it, to deal with Apple's genius, what they did is they went, we're going to sell music on the iTunes store for 99 cents. There's no fucking way we're going to go deal with Mick Jagger or whoever. So on music, there's two sides. There's the publisher and there's the label. The publisher is the artist, Mick Jagger, Sony Music, whoever their label is. And then so Apple made a policy, we're only going to deal with studios. Then they wouldn't have to deal with every little fucking neurotic artist that's going to you know what I mean?
Totally.
Or the ones that were cooperative, whatever.
Yeah.
I gotta watch it. Apparently have this thing about artists. Jeez. Anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm just thinking from a business head, to go after every little person's neuroses would be a nightmare. Yeah. So they just had this policy. We're not going to deal with independents. So they didn't give a shit. And I was like, well, they're missing a lot of money here. And then also what I could see is VHS and DVD was dying. So this needs to go digital. Let's just go with the best. Let's just Apple.
Rad.
This is way before people even had their credit cards on there and shit, like whatever. And so then we just went after them. And once I had a sight on something, there's no fucking stopping me. Like, Jim's a fucking master. So we just went after them and we jumped through every hoop and called every conversation. Finally, in 2006, they granted me, my company, Infamous Entertainment, with a studio. And then basically what that meant was there was now a way for snowboard filmmakers, to have their movies on iTunes.
Wow.
And it's a whole nother story, but that was a grind. That was the most stressful, because it was just right there, and we just kept on kind of moving along, but no one has any idea how long that took and how much balls that took. Like, holy shit, we were whatever. Anyway, so that was kind of that's where I think I took all that energy.
Right.
And put it into hustling, like just full blown. And that's when I actually became good friends with the dudes at Volcom, because they actually trusted us to bring their whole library over and do it in iTunes. And like Taylor Steele was calling me from Bali, just like, you killed our industry or something like that. Cause it's a long story. The whole pricing structure was fucked. We just had to basically eat shit to get in there. So we were selling snowboard movies for $1.99. Right. It was fucking bad, dude. But we knew that eventually that was it. You just get your foot in the door. We'll take a bit of a hit and eventually we'll bring the prices up, which we did. Yeah. But anyway, so that's
incredible. That's fucking like, wow.
Yeah. Well, so this is how I show up. And there was some pretty sweet business moves in there too. And it turned out to be a big beast, because you don't even want to know when you start selling all these movies. All of a sudden you start having to deal with this thing called withholding tax. It's like, what the fuck is that? Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we're selling in like 50 countries now. So that's great. Did you know 50 countries have 50 withholding taxes? Like Australia's withholding tax is 40%. I think the States is 20%. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, international accountant. What the fuck? Yeah. Dude, careful what you wish for. More money, more problems. You know what I'm saying? So fucking, anyway, so when I showed up to Haven, 2007, I had iTunes account, like our studio. Jim was super, he was actually in he's in New York, but he was flying back and forth, Cupertino. We had this huge in with them. And then, dude, I even had one of these little black Apple cards that was like basically we were in, we were, apparently there was an article in Wired magazine about how this company somehow.
Wow.
Yeah, like I have this, dude. We went through the whole thing, redlining a contract with Apple, and now they, fuck, they're probably going to try and sue me for even talking about this because they're so fucking anal about that shit. But this happened.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's huge. Yeah, like you didn't go after some little. This is like the biggest company in the world.
Oh, dude, and like
Christ.
Troy and Wooly at Volcom, those guys were like, they'd been pounding at that door for a long time too. They were trying to get in. Finally, they had to go through us because we had the in.
Yeah.
Finally, Apple's like, well, no, we're not doing, but this we do it with these guys and Infamous, and so we ended up doing like Baker's videos and all skate stuff too, like all that shit went through us. Yeah, it went through. Yeah, everybody had to.
That's incredible.
And so there I am, and I've got just finished a forum movie. Management company at that point, Roberta was buying it off me. Like I to be honest, I was so fucking burnt. I was done. Anyway, and then I'm going to this Haven place in 2007, which is like, okay, this is the place my brother went. He had this experience there. I actually went for this other program. It was called Addictions, and it wasn't because I had this theory about addiction, and it was that I think addiction, passion often get confused, and they had this write up about that how because I loved what I did, and people call me a workaholic, but I was like, no, dude, I love skateboarding and snowboarding and surfing with all of my heart, and there was no difference between how I was living my personal life and how I was business. Like it was like they were all intertwined. It was all the same. You could write off every meal that I had because it was all totally authentically. I lived it 24/7. Like, so, just in it. And I went and did the program, and I went to go do that addictions thing. And it was about, passion and how it got, and they had a different way of looking at it. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then they canceled that program. And then they were like, we've got this other program called Come Alive, which is the one you did. And I was like, oh, that's the one my brother did or whatever. And then Ben and Jock, like fucking weird, dude. Like I'm on this island, like some guy named Ben, some Asian guy named Ben, and this guy named Jock, like this tall, skinny fucker. And I'm like, that's fucking weird. And then, okay, cool, I'll do that course. And I remember even having a little bit of arrogance too. I think that's, I don't think I was consciously arrogant, but I realized now I look back, I'm like, wow, I just by being spoiled, I think, by attrition, having a helicopter addiction and whatever else, where's my heli? And I've actually said those words. And then, just being so spoiled, like the big boom of snowboarding. And it was like, fucking, where's my heli, dude? We need to go there. And all these unlimited budgets for travel. I showed up there and they're like, yeah, you better book me into another course because I'm here. I just flew here, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went and did the course, and right off the bat, I was like, this is weird, man. I'm sitting in a circle, and I knew with how uncomfortable I was, and this is thank God I had this lens, that how uncomfortable I was sitting in this circle, that there was something up with me. Like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Cause I'm so scared right now. And so I'm like, and then I was watching them and the way they were talking, and this Ben guy, this Asian guy's like, he's talking and he's having feelings at the same time, but he's not covering his face. He's just real time living, talking. He's barely talking because that fucker didn't need to say much, but he's just real time living, transparently. What's going on the inside is what's going on the outside with that guy. And I'm watching it going, okay, there's something. And I just was smart enough to go, there's something going on here that I've never seen before. Fuck, am I uncomfortable? Fuck, do I want off this property? I want out of here. This does not fit the Sean Kearns mold of who I think I am and what's cool and what's not. Ben used to dress himself out of the lost and found at the Haven because he didn't give a shit. Like, he didn't care what he's wearing. He did not care.
It's amazing.
and not care in the best way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember they were doing their thing and the programs, and they, it's not talking. A lot of people think this stuff's talking. They do a lot of body stuff. These guys were pioneers with how to get people unstuck. More importantly, that place was not for the treatment of depression and anxiety. What that place was built for was people who wanted to live incredible fucking lives. They wanted to help you get out of your own way. And how do you actually want to live? What do you that being over there, what do you want to do with this lifetime instead of who you should be? And, I didn't know all this at the time because I was still just what the fuck. And then, I think it was the first full day at lunch. They had worked with some people in the middle. They went for it like minute one, like they right off the bat, they didn't care. Like I think they worked with someone first, whatever. And I have what I call a healthy, I have a little more conscious now, but a healthy opportunist. Like I see an opportunity. Now I have more curiousness about other people, but I'm going to try and take this opportunity. I'm like, well, okay, do the math. These guys can only work with so many people in this many days. So I'm like in the cafeteria, scared fucking shitless, so scared. And these two dudes are just sitting over there. And I walk over and I'm just terrified. And I'm like, hi. I remember, hi. Great Sean Kearns, right? Movie making motherfucker. Hi. And they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Sean, right? And I'm like, yeah. And Jock goes, yeah, me and Ben have had a real strong connection to you from the first time we saw you. And I'm like, okay, can I do what you did with you in the circle? Like just do total, like,
that's amazing.
Barely putting words together. Like, just like, eh. And Jock's like, well, thanks for asking. And, yeah, we've heard you're a filmmaker and da 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 da. And I don't know if this, our memories, my memory.
Yes.
This is how I remember it. But the one thing I know for sure is they asked to see a film. They said, would we be able to see something? And I had a copy of Whiskey 1 and Whiskey 2. I think at that point, I've probably produced a lot of movies.
Yeah, 2007. Yeah,
2007. I've had my hands in a lot of different movies, skate movies. I've also filmed tons of. There's a lot of skate parts you don't even know that I've filmed, and all this stuff. Just part of all of it, and started Skateboard Canada video magazine, like a lot of shit.
That was on. You.
Yeah,
that's
started
amazing.
That was Sean, and then
awesome.
And then so yeah, like I don't know. At that point, probably, I don't know, 20 movies, probably. Let's say, sure. Produced, directed, part of, filmed in, whatever, a lot. And a lot of them are pretty professional.
Hell yeah.
And I hand these fuckers Whiskey 1 and Whiskey 2. Isn't that interesting? So I hand it to them and they're like, oh, thanks. And I think in my mind, I'm like, I think, they might look at them, might not. I think maybe there's a part of me that's like, fuck with these guys too, Here's,
yeah, of
whatever.
Of course. What are you going to think of this? Right.
Yeah. Now, so then they go away, I go away, and there's like 3-hour break in the afternoon, and it would take probably 90 minutes or, it'd take an hour and a bit to watch those two movies, 120, whatever.
Yeah.
And they basically, like, as long as it would have taken to watch those two movies, they all of a sudden were looking for me on the property, Ben and Jock. And I'm like, and they found me. And I didn't realize at that point that they'd watched both movies through. And they now consider the source. Okay. These guys, Ben was a famous psychiatrist. He was responsible for removing electroshock, unsupervised electroshock treatment out of the psych wards.
Wow.
And across Canada.
Amazing.
Like that was torturous shit, and they didn't know what they were doing. So and then reduced suffering for so many fucking people. He used to be on TV shows, and he's very famous in China and all this kind of stuff as well. And then Jock, they're very accomplished. But more importantly than all that bullshit, or that's all cool, but more important than that, the most important thing to me is they worked at that point, I think we're 30 years deep of working in what do you call it when people when people stay in residency, when they stay on property?
Yeah.
So they were a doctor and a psychiatrist, and they were working diligently and pulling apart all the different pieces that they learned from Freud and Jung and Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, all these things. And so they were experiential learners. Okay. They learned from experience plus all the Western medicine training that they'd had. But then more so, they found they learned a lot more from like, oh, wow, look what happens when this person breathes while we sit around them and breathe. Oh, wow, watch what happens. And they were guinea pigging. And then they basically were like, they were like two kids in a candy store asking me questions about Whiskey 1 and Whiskey 2. They were just like, all they could see was the value. And they were like, how did you pick the songs? Who taught you how to edit? Did you guys go to school for this? Like all the questions that I'd never really thought anybody saw. And they loved it. They loved it. And they said, do you realize that what you do on a skateboard, what you do on a snowboard, that's what we teach here. Movement. We teach vibration. We teach air. We teach community. We teach anger. We teach rage. We teach joy. Like we teach the human condition. Skateboarding gives you the human condition and on a body felt sensation. Like, I believe that all this stuff about the mental health, it's a fucking bottom up job, not a top down job. So if I go to see a therapist to try and figure out my way to help myself, that's top down versus bottom up. It starts with your body. It starts in your body. You gotta fucking move. You gotta breathe. You gotta all this stuff. Like if you look at the neuroscience of where thoughts are starting, they're showing it starts in the gut now, like gut feeling. So it's bottom up. So that's why I don't like the term mental health, because it's like, it's health. It's health, body health, just health. And I start every day getting into my body first. I call it getting a hold of my brain before my brain gets a hold of me. And I do that by getting in my body, however I do that. Anyway, those guys were like, this is what we teach. This is holy fuck. And the only thing Ben said, and this is how, Ben was kind of quiet. Jock kind of talked a lot, and that was cool, like whatever. But they were truly blown away at how the fuck, one, I'd made it this far on this planet, because those guys can see the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid. They can see it.
Wow. After
After that many years of doing that kind of stuff, there's certain things that you can see in a person's body, and they can tell.
Wow.
The shit that's happened. They can tell that this guy's got fucking, he's carrying, but then they were like, how the fuck did you make it this far? How did you do it? Because they wanted to actually know. That was a trip, man.
What you're fucking awesome.
Like they're like looking at me like I'm going to tell them something. And I'm like, and I actually, I didn't realize this. I became close with them, and I didn't even realize, like first of all, they were retired at that point. They had, they built that place, the Haven, as a place people could go work on themselves, have a new felt sense. Like the thing I get from there is, I would say I get the same feeling I get there as I used to get at Sealand skating with my friends. It's a body felt sensation of like, I'm part of something. I'm stoked. I also have some new theories about what I get from there, is because I also don't use my cell phone when I'm there, so that I get presence when I'm there. So I'm working on taking that out into the rest of my life. But it's like, and it's not about the Haven. It's about getting in groups with people and who are willing to show up in this world and be honest. Fucking rare. And one person talking at a time is huge, because I think we need to hear what's going on inside of us to realize how fucking crazy it is. And then we can actually sort it out ourselves most of the time. So I know I'm off on a tangent, but
no, you're not at all. This is it. This is the thing.
So back to I basically, I'm I wouldn't consider myself a Haven guy. I would say that I've tried any and all modalities that I've been able to find.
Yeah.
From, I spent years banging around in the psychedelic community. I've done somatic experience training. I've done tons of coaching stuff. I've done, I worked with Paul Chek personally. That's a freak show. He's a freak show. He fixed Danny Way, and Danny Way was unfixable.
Totally.
And what I notice is that I just continually keep going back to the Haven, because what they're doing there is something that suits me. It's deep work. It makes a difference. I just get my mind blown every time.
There's a part of it that you're very good at it, right? Like, so if I'm thinking about different modalities, hopping in a station wagon and going skating around, that diminishes after a time. It kind of, for me personally, became, okay, let's do a Sunday night at the indoor park where the old men rent out the thing for an hour. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because you're at a different level. But when you're at the Haven, I've only been there once, 5 days of experience. I got to see some very proficient, it was a big group of interns, right? Like there was a lot of people that were there that were helping facilitate.
Yeah.
It was big.
Oh, it's a...
But you were a standout as far as just like seeing someone like Tony Trujillo. When you see him skate, you're like, ooh, that. Like, holy fuck. He seems like he's not even trying. Is he in slip-ons right now? What's he doing at Hastings in slip-ons? Mm-hmm. And fucking ruling, mm-hmm. And just the flow, the way his hair flows. And then he's like, after he's, fuck it, I'm going to go to the van and smoke a joint with these guys. Like, what the fuck is that? I had that with you at the Haven, where we didn't really connect out there very much. We didn't talk very much. I was watching from the wings going, he's good at this. Mm-hmm. And then there's Linda. Then there's Linda, and Linda's good at this. Mm-hmm. Like seeing that you going back to the Haven, for me, of course you're going back to the Haven. It's where your abilities meet opportunity to fucking actually use them. Right? Like Tony Hawk seeing a vert ramp that's 50 feet wide. Mm-hmm. He's going to go by it, and he's going to, whatever he's doing that day, he's like, fuck, there's a perfect vert ramp right there. I have my gear. Mm-hmm. It would probably feel good to just stretch out the body and do a couple of fucking airs and a grind,
Well, do you have a question about it, or it just?
I think that I'm just making an observation that you being drawn back to the Haven, especially when you're talking about all the modalities you've tried, psychedelic therapy, coaching, somatic therapy, all these modalities might work for someone who's out there that's listening. If our intention is to help people, those things are going to maybe help someone in a way that they wouldn't help me or they wouldn't help you. Like, these are things, but the first thing is bottom up, boots on the ground. How do you feel? Like, what is going on for you right now? Mm-hmm. As opposed to this like pill popping, like my kids came to me saying like, I might want to go to a psychiatrist and get a prescription so I don't feel the way that I feel. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was just fucking red flags. Like, why are we told that we could pop a pill and feel differently and that's going to be better? Like, start at where you are. Mm-hmm. Sorry, now I'm kind of jumping around, but the reason that the Haven modality works for you is that is where you find some joy in helping yourself. Right? And part of that is actually being incredibly solid, more solid than anyone I've ever seen, at sitting with someone who's going through something that everyone in that 30-person circle is just like, I couldn't deal with that. I would not be who I am if that had happened to me. And you're sitting there just like smiling, like, yes, this is it. This is the thing. I got you. So does that ability to have people in their depth of pain translate into some form of supporting yourself out in the world in your own pain?
Yeah. Well, and I, to be transparent with you, and what you said earlier is like, it is an interesting time in my life right now because, like, so just to go back to the circle, the thing about, it's so crazy, man. You're probably going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but I don't really, it's like, but I think it was Timothy Leary said that he believed that actually surfers were going to be the people that could change the earth, something like that. And it was like, and I think what I can relate to the fact that, you learn something. I learned something from skateboarding. I learned a sense of myself from the inside out first. Like, skateboarding doesn't lie. It's in the healing world. I think the most underrated, untalked about thing is self-responsibility, meaning my part in this. Well, skateboarding teaches you self-responsibility starts in the body. It's not a head thing. Oh, no, it's in the body. And because if you're not self-responsible when you're skateboarding, you fucking eat shit. And guess what? It's no one else's fault. And you learn that. I learned that. It's like, fucking that taught me that like, as soon as I'm blaming anybody else for anything that's going on, I lose the chance to do anything different. So I think, it's so crazy that the same sayings that happen in the healing world. So dropping in, that's a huge one. That's what they call it. They're like, are you willing to drop in? Are you willing to let go? Well, that's a skateboarding term, dropping in. And we have a body felt sensation of doing that. I cannot tell you how many people I have watched who don't skateboard, snowboard, and surf, and that they just want to even have a taste of what that is. Just a taste of dropping in, just a taste of letting go. And when people who've skateboarded, snowboarded, and surfed, and especially people who've done it at like a high level, show up into circles, and a lot of people have, and a lot of really my friends, my people have shown up, and they are continually the ones leading the circle because they're going for it.
Rad.
And they know what dropping in is. And then it's so crazy, dude. Like, think about skateboarding. It's like coping. Like, I've in the personal healing world, coping is like, how are you coping? Well, I know how I coped. I fucking lapped into frontside grinds and tried to rip fucking concrete apart with, I had this natural expression. It's called coping. How the fuck is that the same thing? Like, there's just all these parallels that I'm like, they just keep popping up. Aggression. What I've learned through Haven is they call it aggress energy, which is like, there's anger and rage and whatever, but then there is this other energy that's very valuable. And we, in snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing, have found, like, I've never hit a lip on my surfboard where I've gone, I'm going to be really kind to this lip. I'm like, I'm going to rip the fucking shit out of this. And it's a juicy, awesome fucking energy. And I've had a release for that. Same with skateboarding. It's like, I'm going to lock in on this grind. I'm going to fucking boost this fucking air, whatever. Same with snowboarding. Like, you can just punch your tail into stuff and just feel this. And so we intrinsically have this relationship with this. I have this relationship with this energy. And when I actually got injured and I couldn't move, that's when everything fucking fell apart in pieces for me, because I couldn't move this energy anymore. And I became fucking angry and hated the world because there was no room for me to move this energy, and all the stuff with my dad and everything came crashing down. And it's a big stack.
Yeah.
I was stacked up.
Yeah.
Including a story now that I'd created, that for me to do anything that's worthwhile, I need to be the best in the world at it. I need to have $10,000 a month. This was my unconscious story. Mm-hmm. I need $10,000 a month to fulfill this habit I had called life, because I built these spending habits that were fucking nuts. Mm-hmm. And these, like, it's really important to check out what stories it's important for me to check out what story I'm telling myself, because if I don't pull that out, a story will give me what I ask of it. So if I'm telling myself I need 10 grand a month just to live, then that is what I'm going to believe. And then I'm in a prison of $10,000 a month. Now, fuck, for some people that's a lot, some people not, whatever, but I didn't even realize I had that story. And that's a shitty story to have, that I need $10,000, because it's not even true.
Right.
So it's just important. And, you know, I had some pretty harsh stories that for me I had these harsh expectations of myself, that if I didn't meet these expectations, I was fucked. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm thinking like, take like a Palmer, the king, and his story is greatest athlete that ever lived. I believe that he is the greatest athlete overall, and what he, you know, and, which is funny. I think he's super underrated, because fucking you know, but if he's still running the story of, I'm Sean Palmer, the greatest athlete ever, but he's not acting out as the greatest athlete, and he hasn't transitioned out of that, I would imagine is probably, I'm totally barfing this out. I don't know. I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
Right.
But I had to change my story of who I thought I was, which is, it's a different story now. And that's what I'm in the middle of right now. It's like I'm changing the story of who I am, who I want to be, how I want to live my life. And it's one of the most powerful fucking things you can do. But if I'm having this unconscious story running and I'm constantly disappointing myself, dude, like that's why I end up in a lot of these programs and stuff, because they talk about this stuff. And I'm sitting in those programs going, fuck, man, so many people need to hear this. This is Depression 101. I have a fucking story of who I should be. I'm not that story. Now I've got an internal battle going on inside of me. I better go get a fucking pill. Instead of someone going, hey, dude, how about depression could be your friend? It's trying to tell you that you need to update your story. And if you update your story, because my story was fucking gnarly. Like, I needed to be the best in the world. I just fucking cracked Apple, man. Fucking, you know,
yeah.
None of that I even wanted. Like, I mean, it was rad to do, but I didn't want it as an identity.
Right.
And that was running. And then all of a sudden I'm wondering, I'm sitting there in a circle and I'm fucking hating life. Like, just like constantly thinking unconsciously that I need to be taking over the world and doing all this shit I don't even want to do.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like,
I love it.
I want to share that. Be mindful of what story I'm telling myself, because it'll give me what I ask of it. And another thing is also, what fucking genre am I looking at life through? Like, what is it? A tragedy? Is it a comedy? Is it a adventure? Like, what is it? Like, I'm going for adventure comedy. And for a while there, I was like, wow, this is a fucking tragedy. Jesus Christ. And it's like, well, I'm really looking at life through a fucking really shitty lens, you know? And then, you know, so I don't know. Those are just some things.
Okay. So on that, because I wanted to touch on this if it came up, you mentioned to me, because, you know, I'm not making excuses for the psychedelic thing. Like, I love doing psychedelics. It was fun. I still will do it. And there's a time and a place for it, and setting and intentions and all this stuff. But you've said to me either in a text, I think it was in a text a few weeks ago, the strongest drug you've ever experienced was victimhood.
Yeah, victimage. Yeah,
victim.
Still, dude. Yeah. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And I think if there's one person out there that can benefit from understanding, like, look, sure, when I tried heroin, I beat myself up. Still probably can. I still can beat myself up going, I fucking did heroin. I'm one of those people that did heroin. But that drug is nothing compared to victimhood. Not even, it's like it's a fun time, actually. It's actually like a lack of responsibility and just a respite into a nice place for a little bit, like smoking a joint or whatever. It's like awesome compared to that fucking strong, unending tug of victimhood that's just like being drowned underwater by yourself, somehow holding yourself underwater. I don't even get it.
It is the, you know, I wasn't aware that I was stepping into it and how I got there, but I easily say that the worst drug I've ever fucked with is Victim, and it's like because it's got a nice warm feeling to it in the beginning, which is like, this happened to me and now I'm this. That gives me fuck yeah. Like, so for me, it was like a car accident that I was in, and my back actually was fucked. And I look at it totally differently now than when it happened. But after 5 days, I couldn't walk. Scared the shit out of myself. Couldn't believe it. And then I tried to fix it on my own, clumsily. I believe that my back injury was a call to consciousness. And if anybody out there has back pain, I'll say this, it's ongoing and they've been trying to figure it out. The first thing I'll say is fucking, I'm sorry that you're going through that. 'Cause that took me out. Now I realize that it saved my life because I had to learn what I had to learn, and I look at life differently because of it. But fuck, when I was in it, you try to tell me that, I would have fucking killed you, And anyway, but then because of my unconscious story that I need to make $10,000 a month to live, and because I need to be the great this and that, fucking all these things I didn't even know, I get to the at some point I'm like, I'm not getting better. I better call a lawyer. And then a lawyer, and you sue because I was in a car accident.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you.
So I did the whole thing.
Yeah.
And my intention was never to fucking go for this big paycheck and whatnot. But, it was actually just to get treatments out of it. Like I remember, but whatever. It's a crazy fucking story. That's the craziest fucking story. But anyway, so I end up hiring this lawyer. At the end of the day, there I go. Like, I did it. I hired the guy, blah, blah, blah. And then just by attrition, or by definition, I had to play this role of, basically the story is it's a story of woe. It's a story of poor me. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I'm playing the game now. Right. And then now I'm also like stepping into like Western medicine's limitations of how to heal a back and what's going on and all this kind of stuff. And I have the gnarliest footage of all the treatments I got, like fucking epidurals, like everything to get rid of this pain, and just going after it like a fucking beast too. But then also going after it like the very stubborn Sean Kearns would go after it, which is, by in and of itself, that thought process is probably not doing so good for anybody's back. But so here's the harsh part of it is like, so from 2007, I went to the Haven, 2007, 4 days later, I got in that car accident.
Holy shit.
So I went from being completely open, the Haven, like, holy fuck, like what the fuck just happened? This is a trip, to bam. Like, and not to mention I was coming back from like one of the best surf sessions of my life. So I went from, I now understand nervous systems, to go from that much of an opening and a high to fucking that much of a low and a down is pretty gnarly on a person's nervous system, especially when a person doesn't even think they have a nervous system like me. Like fucking that shit's I used to call people humans. I'd be like, human. Like, and yeah, it's pretty hard on myself and other people who, be like, back pain, that's for humans, Unreal. Oh yeah, dude. Unreal. Like, yeah. And, anyway, I don't know if we're off track, but
no, we aren't actually.
I guess that's what this is about. I'm talking because it's a podcast.
Yes, and it's your life, and we've been kind of trundling along from a child to. So we just got to the big fucking point here.
Oh, okay.
Where you just dropped in from the world's largest vert ramp and found yourself lying in the flat bottom trying to figure out, okay, what the fuck just happened there?
What the fuck just happened, And I'll tell you, it's pretty funny because what I've learned is, it may sound like, I'm sitting here with tons of money, and it's not the case, dude. I fucking tanked it. I tanked the iTunes deal. I tanked everything. Like I just basically got scared, and with this whole victim mentality of like playing this game, and then I was so scared and fucked up. Like I didn't even know who I was. I'm listening to this lawyer, very different, a personal injury lawyer who's working on contingency, very different than a lawyer. Than I had lots of really good experiences with lawyers in the States because I was an agent. I used to contracts, So really clear negotiations, really clear experience. But when you get into it with a personal injury lawyer, or when I got into it, I didn't realize that a big part of it is I really didn't like. So I chose to sue. At the same time, I was very unaware of what that meant. It was not made clear to me. Now my responsibility would have been to do that, to really get clear on what does this mean? Because I thought they were going to sit and have a couple beers and work this deal out over lunch.
Right.
Like I have so many times with lawyers, and I'd negotiate deals with Burton and Forum and all of them.
Mac Dog.
Dude, all that stuff. And we do it like, oh yeah, everybody else is flopping about, talking about shit, me and you, let's get this deal done, boom, done. Like
rad.
And there was with the other thing about skateboarding is this industry, and it's different now, but then there was a lot of protection that came in. You didn't fuck someone over because your career would be done. Like the old boys,
Yeah.
Like when Wooly and Troy and those guys were starting Volcom, that was at the same time that Sean and I were doing whiskeys, and Mouse was doing his stuff, and Mac Dog was already doing his thing. So we have a mutual respect, and everybody knows everybody. So, Ken was doing his stuff, Ken Block and all that. And there was like an inner kind of like respect of each other that you just don't go and fuck someone over. So all of a sudden I step out of that bubble, and now I'm in the real world, or the other world, which I'm not really interested in playing in. And I'm now, first of all, they're trying to understand my career through a conventional lens. Well, good luck.
Right.
And it just, so then all of a sudden, like there I am, I'm playing the victim role of poor me. I used to make this much money.
This is what's been taken from me.
This is, yeah. And then now I'm telling the story of like, I can't do that now. And where the victim part's really fucked up is the victim part puts aside all the stuff that I did to get there.
Right.
And I had everything to do with getting there. Like I was the one who got there.
Right.
I was in that vehicle. It wasn't my fault that we got hit, but just all the other stuff, who I was hanging out with, the choices I made, everything. I got there. So it's totally the victim thing is like, in a moment, I'm a victim. In that second, I'm a victim. I had no choice. We got hit by a car in that moment. But then my belief is from here, this place, a grounded place, I can actually make a decision and not identify as the person who got hit in the car. I'm the person now who feels a little bit stiff and this and that. It's a different thing.
Right.
It's like I can make a decision from here. The past can inform what's going on for me now, but it's not all of me. That's what it is. A victim mentality is like, I'm this and it's fixed. I'm the back guy. I'm the guy with the sore back. And this has happened to me and I can't do anything. And there's a lot of therapists and a lot of people, physical therapists, and that won't work with people who are in injury claims.
That makes sense.
Because you can't heal. Because...
Right.
So listen to this story. So that was 2007. I'm going to the Haven. I'm dying. Like 2007 to 2009 was real bad. I didn't know who the fuck I was. I'm living on a point break in my dream house. The point's fucking grinding off and I'm sitting in my front yard dying, like bitter. And then I'd go and surf and I felt sorry for anybody in the water those days. Sorry about that. Anyway. And then going to the Haven and everything like that, and I'm learning all this stuff, and then finally, that lawsuit ended up dragging out for a lot of years.
Of course,
the lawyer that I had was up to a whole bunch of shit that to this day, like they're just a bigger. I found out he had like 200 open cases at the time. Like like,
is that a lot? That sounds like a fucking insane amount.
yeah. And then my experience of certain personal injury lawyers, it's a really good idea to keep your clients scared so that they'll settle at any time, just in case, whatever.
Yep, sure.
Definitely some fucked up shit. Like, it was really, there was, yes, I played the victim. I dove in, and there was a lot of stuff I was unaware of that was going on. Now I look at it, but the cost was huge to me. Anyway, so I finally hired Paul Check because I was so scared. I'm like, I need someone who knows more than the medical system to tell me that I'm where I'm at, because this ain't working, and this lawyer shit ain't working, and this da-da-da. So I hired Paul as a personal coach, which he barely even fucking sees people. You have
Right.
I sent Danny a text and said, dude, can you get me in with Paul? Because Danny was close with Paul. And then basically Paul agreed to see me. I don't even know if Danny got back to me or he just talked. I don't even know. I don't know. All I know is that I sent a message right to his assistant. And then it's really expensive to work with him.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Like, a lot. And he doesn't fuck around. You got to work with him. He wants to work with you for a year.
Holy
and,
fuck.
And it's to the tune of $500 US an hour.
Oh my God.
And he knows what the fuck he's doing.
Of course.
And so I'm taking everything I have, every fucking penny, and putting it into trying to save my life, which is what I did. And finally, at that point, I'm so deep in spending money on programs and everything and selling anything that I had, any real estate, anything. I'm being sold to fucking keep me alive because I'm like fucking hurting.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, I signed up with Paul and, oh fuck, I had to fill out all this paper because he's a holistic health practitioner. So he looks at everything. And because you have to look at everything, because one thing is going to, so you're looking at your relationship to money, your relationship to logos and branding. Like, are you dressing yourself or is your environment dressing you? Because I'm pretty sure that Nike swoop ain't fucking that cool if you really look at it, that kind of shit, Wow. Like, he goes in, right? You're breaking down the myths, archetypes, like deep shit. And I've done tons of training at this point, so I really understand a lot of this stuff. Finally, I get Paul on my first Zoom with him, which was after filling out a month's worth of paperwork. Like, it was, and all that shit brought up. So I'm a wreck now.
Right.
I get him on Skype. I'm desperate though. I'm desperate. Right. And fuck, man, he's like, okay, so get on the call with him. And he's like, it's super funny, dude. He blew a big bag of fucking smoke and shit. He's like, hope you don't mind. I'm just blowing some fucking smoke. Got some northern shag in here and fucking, oh dude, he blew a big, like, fucking vape thing of whatever he was smoking.
Wow.
No, I actually have the Skype call. It's the best. He's like, just so you know, if I'm looking down, I'm making notes, or if I get up, I'm not going to charge it. It's taking a piss. And hey, you don't mind if I just blow a big bag of smoke, do you? Because I'm like, sure, dude. And he goes and he comes back with this huge thing. He's all, woo, like, dude's fucking.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because obviously the normal fucking way of working with someone and everything all uptight and fucking shit, it's not going to work for me because I never have been. So he's like, I'm looking at all your paperwork. I'm looking at all your paperwork here. And blah, blah, blah. He's like, okay, so you started all these companies, done really well for yourself. Like, it's actually fucking incredible what you've done. Like, I can't believe how the fuck, you never went to film school. You never went to da-da-da-da-da. You started all this company. You fucking started a company with that. You had a contract with Apple, a studio, and you started a management company and you're negotiating these deals and your music licensing. Like, he's looking at all this stuff and he goes, it's quite fucking incredible. Like, truly, like, this is what a highly intelligent, free man who's not bound by limitations. This is what they create. And I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. Right. And he's like, so, but then comes along 2007 and you get in this car accident and and then, a couple of years you bang around, but then you hire this lawyer, which, good businessman, smart, you hire this lawyer and of course you go after and you get the best lawyer because you're not stupid. Right. And he goes, and now from that point on, you're you're now trapped. Your life is in the hands of someone else. But the reason it's in the hands of someone else is because you chose to put it. And he goes, for some people, that's okay. For you, it's not. And he looks right in the screen and he just looks right up and he's like, you sold out, brother. You sold out. And dude, wow. I fucking just started bawling. And I was like, finally, someone fucking said what my heart and soul has known the whole time, but my head was spinning out about. And I was like, dude, thank you. Holy fuck. And he goes, because here's what's happening, dude. Every time you take flight, you get pulled right back to 2007. There's nothing back there for you, dude. There's a big paycheck. But look at what you created before that, you know? It's like, and he's like, and this is manifesting in your body because you fucking have sold out.
Oh, wow.
And I sold out.
That's incredible.
I sold out and I played victim to win. And holy fuck, man. Like, by far the worst situation, worst thing. It just broke I stepped into a situation where I challenged every fucking essence of my identity and who I thought I was, which was better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. But then all of a sudden I'm living on my knees. I'm sitting across fucking desks like this with fat fucks with fucking ties tearing into me. And I'm going, Wow. And I had a fundamental rule before that you talk to anybody talks to me like that, I'm coming across the table. There's only so many, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm breaking my code of conduct as a man. Like, and I'm sitting here sucking dick in this fucking office right now for money. I'm eating shit. And I've also got a guy who's supposed to be protecting me and he ain't doing shit too. So I've just totally sold out and completely out of integrity. So here's my message. Do you think fucking I need to go get fucking antidepressants? Or do you think I need to wake the fuck up and go, what the fuck am I doing with my life? So I actually believe my depressing is actually my warning signal for when I'm out of integrity with my soul. It's like, and anxiety as well. Same thing. I'm like, ooh, fuck, what's going on here? And same with depression. Oh, fuck, something's going on. I'm not doing all right. Like, pay attention. What are you doing? What's going on? Where is my head and brain not talking? Because my head and my body, because my fucking body's telling me one thing and my head's telling me another. So get those two lined up. And it seems to be working. I mean, I'm still here. I don't know how that's doable. Yeah, I'm all fired up fucking now. I'm just thinking about that thing with Paul. I mean, he saved my life that day. I was paying for it, so I guess I saved my life, but fucking he said it and I trusted him. And to trust, this is going to sound a little bit weird. I thought about this. If you're paying someone to fucking help you as a guide of any kind, for me, anytime that I've paid someone as a guide to help me, which I paid a lot of people. And this is one of Paul's lines. If they can't be guiding you in your underwear, don't listen to them. And when the people that I, through my victim process and the diving in on that, and I look at actually, it's not a vain thing. It's not a fat shaming thing. That's not what it is. When I look at them, they look sick.
Right.
They got purple fucking skin.
Sure.
And, you know, the thing I'll give myself is that the whole time that I went through that whole thing, I still took care of myself somehow. I was not the sick guy in the room.
Yeah.
I was hurting, but I was not the guy with the purple skin and the fucking neck and the shirt and the tie. You know, it's like, we don't think that you really hurt yourself, Mr. Kearns. And I'm just like, holy fuck, man. So, you know, if you're going to pay someone or work with someone who lives it, you know, lives healthy, lives, you know,
fuck
does what they say and say what they do. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. There was a point where we were sitting in circle and I have some form of attention. I mean, the society's told me it's a problem. My attention goes all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
So when I was in a classroom as a kid, I was constantly out the window. I was in my head. I was doodling, whatever I was doing. I wasn't eyes on the board, paying attention, getting the lesson.
Thank fuck.
And,
Anyway.
and then at the Haven, I would find myself zoning out a few times here and there. And one time I was just going, if we're fucking serious, we should just drop the gear. Like, because I'd heard someone had said, oh my God, before, when it was Cold Mountain.
You mean take your clothes off? You mean?
Yeah.
Drop
I'm
the
like,
gear.
What would these assholes do right now if I drop the gear? And I demanded, like, look, we all need to drop the gear. Because that is what's keeping us locked in this fucking bullshit is because
that we're not naked.
That we're not naked. That we're not.
Speak
like,
for yourself, dude.
Hey, it was a thought. It was like a thought of like,
well, no, dude, they do that shit. Like
sure. And I don't want to do it. By the way, I don't want to do it at all.
There are, and there are ways to. There are programs, and like I said, I've only met a couple people that have dove in as hard as I've dove into. So I've done programs where you have like 5 days no clothes.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Which is strangers.
Yeah. They're not strangers by the end.
Not by the end.
And those people more than fucking anybody else in your life.
Right.
But I mean, that's the level. I mean, when you go after something, even the psychedelic shit like that, like if I'm going to work with, I'm fucking an experiential learner. I got no fucking business teaching you something or working with someone or guiding you unless I've experienced it.
Right.
In my opinion.
Sure.
So, I'll tell you a bad mix is that a rough mix is when there's an unconscious driver thinking that I need to be the best in the world at something. I implore you, do not try to become the best psychedelic therapist in the world because with an experiential learning style, because I've done every psychedelic I think that I could get my hands on to ad nauseum before I would administer. I've never administered before I would be part of guiding with a person. And I want to know, I need to know, can you do this? Can you do this amount, that amount, that amount? So I can tell you how much too much is.
Right.
And I can tell you, and they have their place, but, I have a strong, I'm a Ram Dass guy, dude. Like at the end of the day, you got to come down. So why not learn how to live, consciously and aware of where you're at and live in this, I don't know how you want to say, I don't know, the up and down show doesn't work, and leaving this plane of reality without being able to get your feet back on the ground for me doesn't. I mean, we talked about this earlier. I don't know if we really want to get into that, but
well, we didn't talk about it on mic, and I think that it's sort of where I've landed, and I can speak to my own experience with it. It's like, look, if you want to be shaken up, take a strong psychedelic. There's no more, sorry, I shouldn't say that. To me, in my thinking before, there was no more guaranteed way, right? Like if you take 5 dry grams of magic mushrooms, good luck to trying to not get shaken up, right? So people say, oh, that doesn't work for me, or didn't this, or didn't that. Look, blowing your mind is not the fucking challenge. The challenge seems to be coming into your fucking experience, right?
Like your normal day to day.
Yeah, like
well, dude,
actually having a day to day, like having a revelation that's grounded in your day to day experience. So for me, this bridges two things. What I found the miracle of the Haven to be, and miracle is a fucking religious word, the surprise to me about the Haven was how simple it is to just grab 30 random people and put them in a circle. If someone's got a little bit of facilitating knowledge, within 5 days, you could have bonds stronger than you've had with family you've been family with your whole life, just by being honest for 5 days. That's fucked up. Like that's crazier fucked up than that you can smoke a bit of or vape a bit of 5-MeO DMT, go and see whatever the hell that fucking weird experience is, and come back and try and integrate that for try and make that a part of what you've got here, as opposed to diving into what's going on here. Holy shit, you've got a whole lifetime of experiences of someone telling you, oh yeah, we're putting you in childcare because we care about you. Right? But the people who are caring for me at this childcare don't care. So what the fuck am I doing here?
You lost me. Where are you?
Sorry.
No, it's good. I'm just
good. Okay.
I was just going back to, I was kind of stuck on, you can put 30 people in this room with someone who has very little skill. And by the end of 5 days.
No. I didn't mean very little skill.
I'm like, dude, I thought it was so good.
You need,
I'm like,
you need a facilitator, and what you need is the commitment, right?
Well, dude,
so I think 30 people that have no skill could actually do it. If you put 30 people together and said, okay, so this is what the fucking book says, we commit to telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
And you do 5 days with 30 strangers telling the truth. By the end of those 5 days, probably 10 of the people might have left if there's no good facilitator.
Yeah. But okay, so
there's a magic there.
Okay, so here's the experience thing. Like, I love all this. I mean, have you heard of Huberman and all that? You know, he's a skater, right? You know that? Yeah. So I don't know him, but I know Blayback and whatever.
Yeah.
And I love what he's doing. And I think it's brilliant that he's just, there is basic things that can make a big thing. You know, there's these basic things that can make a big difference in your life. Like, I call it the owner's manual. Like, you got to have the basic 5 things. You need movement, you need connection, you need air, water, whatever. Like, there's this basic things that if you just don't do, you're not going to do well. And no matter what, we need these basic fundamental things. And so he talks about all that stuff. But for me, what I love and why I'm so blessed with this whole, I think, the opportunity to sit in these circles, and you've seen it. You're not talking about rehab. You're talking about fucking doctors, lawyers, fucking real people who want to live incredible lives. And have this feeling of like creating, because they've been chasing money or fuck whatever. And what I've noticed over and over and over again is when there's a circle of people, which is how we used to do it in tribes, we used to sit around. And so, do you know what a Faraday machine is? Do you know what a Faraday cage is? A Faraday cage is, so they've measured this. So this is what I think happens in a circle. And I've done this where I almost sound like I'm bragging, but I'm a student of life, bro. But no, I've actually gone and investigated AA meetings where they're sitting in church pews, but then I'll go to an AA meeting where they're sitting in circles and same with NA meetings. I've gone to the ones where, it's like like I've sat in circles, Washuma circle, all the shit. Okay. And I'm sitting there going, wow, what's going on here? And how do I feel? Cause after sitting in certain circles and one person talks at a time and tells the truth, something happens. So what I think happens is in a Faraday cage, they've measured this, that, humans, this is not woo-woo anymore. They've measured, we are vibrational beings. We're made up of cells and we have energy fields around us. They can measure different fields. When in a Faraday cage is, to my understanding, is it basically they build them for recording studios and everything, is that no electromagnetic frequencies or no electro pollution can come into the room, so they can create. So like in studios, sometimes they're lined in copper, but it's a full cage and grounded to the earth. So no exterior, EMF pollution or whatever that is can come in, and they can measure energy. And they've measured, that the highest they thought a human could resonate at was love. And 400 times higher than that, there's a frequency, and it's authenticity. So when a person sits, so what I've seen is if a person can actually just find someone say what's going on in here, really what's going on in here, and put it out and be witnessed. And I think a lot of times people tell people things for the first time and they're witnessed, they feel amazing after. It's because they're being authentic. Until it comes out of our mouth and out there, we believe it's us. And in the human condition, humans, I believe, benefit hugely by the Dalai Lama talks about this, and those guys are all neuroscientists and shit. And it's a confession. It's actually a natural human condition or a healthy human condition to say what's going on, say the truth. And now it's not you. And there's something very powerful when other humans witness it and they're okay with it. They don't freak out. They don't run for the door. And they just realize that it's part of the process. I believe that we actually have all the answers inside of us. I don't ever want to think I know something that you don't know. I might be good at helping you fish it out, but I actually hold you able to know your answers. But part of it is that we have to tell the truth as part of it. And I need people around me. Hey, this is what's going on in my head. And then I say it out loud and I can even see that that's crazy and not true. And it seems like, I think of one for a parent, because I believe in our society. I believe in my society and what I've grown up in. I've been taught to respond, not to listen. So when you're talking to me, I'm sitting there thinking of my response. I need to say something that's going to get him to like me, all this shit, right?
Right.
Versus listen, just listen. I don't have to do anything. Just listen. And so I had a friend of mine told me once that his son had come to him and said, "Dad, I think I'm lazy." And he went, "Oh, you're not lazy. You do this and you do that and you do this and you do that and you do that and you do this." And he asked me about it. And he said, "What do you think about that whole interaction?" I said, "Well, what actually I think happened is because you're an adult, we're supposed to grow ourselves up, I think become mature. The kid comes to the dad and says, 'Dad, I think I'm lazy.' What I think he actually said is, 'Dad, when I'm alone, I'm telling myself I'm lazy.'" Mm. And when you talked back to him and said, "Oh, no, da, 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 da," he got the message that he's wrong for thinking that. When actually, and this is tricky because in our society, we're supposed to be taught that, it's so easy that we're taught, I believe I'm taught to beat on myself. I'm supposed to be the perfect parent. I'm supposed to do it right. Mm. Dude, I don't think that's how we're taught, but really just to learn to listen. And how about this? Like, "Hey, Dad, I think I'm lazy." "Oh, really, son? Tell me more about that. Tell me more about why you think you're lazy. I'm really curious about that. Like, say more." And how quick I think there's so much pressure put on parents, I think, and people to do it right, do it perfect, so that when a kid comes and says, "I have a problem," I think I have beat the shit out of myself because I'm supposed to be doing it. I'm supposed to do it differently. I'm supposed to be a better parent. I'm supposed to be a better person. This shouldn't have happened. It's my fault. Versus keeping that. So this is why the circles are so important. When I've said to people, I'm like, "How many times have you ever sat in a circle where one person talked at a time?" People are like, "Never." I'm like, fuck, it's like that Nelson trip I went on to. I was crashing AA meetings because I was like, dude, I want to find some people to connect with. So I went to an AA meeting because I wanted to hear some people tell the truth. And I said, "Hey, saying I'm an alcoholic would be a fucking understatement, dude. I just said, 'Hey, my name's Sean and I'm a piece of work. And I'm here to listen. I'm here to share.'" And I shared, and I got this feeling after of like, wow, I feel fulfilled right now. I feel whole. There's some people telling the truth. These people are telling the truth. And I told the truth. No one had to do anything. No one had to fix anybody. And that meeting was called a candlelight, where they face each other and you talk and people listen, and that's it. You have to say you're an alcoholic first at that one, or piece of work or whatever.
Sure.
I don't care. That's a small price to pay.
Well, okay. So like realizing what I just said, you can put 30 people in a circle. the missing
with anybody can run it.
There's yeah. There, you need a good facilitator, obviously, to set the guidelines that, and it's really not that hard, right? Like we sat in a circle, and we were first invited to ask permission to do clearings with other people in the circle, and it took a little bit for people to like understand. And hey, maybe. Okay, I'm talking about other people. It took a long time for me to understand what was going on there. But once I thought I got it, I was like, wow, this really is the powerfulness of this. If you can have someone, and it happened to me quickly, if you can have someone come up to you and clear with you, and you really just hold that space for them, you know, for me, I have to remind myself constantly, okay, this isn't about me. This isn't about me. This isn't about me. And that didn't work. The person said something that felt very personal. And I tried to like not absorb it. I tried to just be there and say, thank you for sharing, you know, great, good. Mm-hmm. That's the fucking thing that you're talking about. That's the magic behind it, is a safe space to be authentic.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and I'm not correcting her. It's just my personal thing. I always get I tighten myself up around that term, holding space, because actually, I ain't fucking doing anything. I just need to fucking be there.
Right.
And that's why I think the most important work a person can do, my story is, my judgment, my whatever, is on yourself. So that if I can fucking be grounded and centered in myself and witness of another person's experience without freaking out when they tell me whatever they did, whatever happened, and I can just sit there and be there. That's the thing. You don't need to do anything. I don't need to do anything. I just need to be there and say, thank you for telling me, and not have a reaction. And that's why I was telling you earlier about that friend of mine who worked in the North. And this is worth hearing, I think, is this friend of mine, she gets called in. So there's stuff that happens on this fucking planet that you don't want to know about. And I don't want to know about. I have a better lens in than most because of the work that I'm seeing, but I see a lot of things that the news doesn't talk about and that we don't. And I have friends who work in the prison system, and they tell me fucking stories, and I'm like, okay, there's this whole other world going on that we do a pretty good job, I think, of keeping hidden.
Yeah.
And I know this woman who is the woman who gets called in the cases that you don't want to know about. And she's fucking, because fuck, who else is going to do it? And so the way that, the way that, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but the way I heard it with this one story, and what she taught me is that she said that she'll get flown into, like, there's a bad situation. Let's just say they've found a couple kids that have been brought up in a very bad situation their whole lives. In a basement, in the middle of fucking nowhere, whatever, let's just say. Something, I don't want to get too graphic, whatever. But then, okay, this has been discovered, and now the kids are in the hospital getting, you know, or whatever. They've been picked up by the police, and it's being dealt with. My friend gets called in, and she, the first thing she does is she gets all the people that were involved in picking up the kids or whatever, let's just say. And she says, and she gets them together. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, it's not sure exactly how she says, look, this is, none of you done anything wrong. I need to hear exactly what you've said to those children. And I need to also do your best to remember every little nuance. And in your face, was your face like feeling sorry for them? Was it smiling? Whatever. Okay. And you know, this is just a story. So I'm not going to say this is how you should do things, but this stuck with me. And then I think the way she put it, she said, someone asked her, like, why, do you mind asking why before she goes, well, until she met you, until these kids met you, they didn't think anything was wrong.
Oh, wow.
This was their normal. So then she goes and works with the kids on learning from them and kind of undoing initial, because a lot of trauma, this fucking word trauma, I call it life. I'll switch the word. Sure, shit happens. And fucking I've had my fair share, but I call it life. Life has happened to me. And it's been fucking tough. And I wear some of that shit the rest of my life. It's life. It's been my life. And that, so these kids, they don't understand that it's been trauma. And the trauma comes from the looks on people's faces, the shame, the this and that. And that's when, like, fuck, this thing of like reacting and being so fucking fragile, but when a word says someone this and fucking that, oh my God, I can't believe that fucking you did it. It's like, holy fuck, dude. Like, this person didn't know there was anything wrong until you just started fucking freaking out and having this reaction. Ooh, you know, it's like, I know that's really counter whatever to what we're taught about. Oh, you can't say this word and you can't say that word. And I'm going to freak out if you say the wrong fucking thing. It's like, well, what about the fucking kid or the person who got so fucked over that a word means nothing? And can I actually, you know, I'm on a tear right now. So yeah, I pride myself in being able to be with people in tough situations. And why do you think I might be good at that or see why that's so important? It's because I was in tough situations. I've been in tough situations. And the worst thing that has ever happened is the look on people's faces when I told people what happened. That's the shit. That's what fucked me up. Not the thing. I was too young to even fucking understand the thing, you know? So that's like, and it's a tough thing. There's no perfect way to do it, you know?
I hear in what you're saying, if you go back to the beginning of how you kind of prefaced that, there's a lot of things that
I'm glad you're tracking because I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point.
There's a lot of things that we do as a society that we're really good at collectively turning away from. So when we have to face those, we're so ill-equipped that the only thing we can do is ruin it more for the person that's involved, right? So like if I've got no experience with parents dying, you know.
Yeah. It's like,
and then you tell me your dad dies, I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do is like, ooh, that must be the worst. Here's the closest I can get to it.
Didn't do anything.
Right. Here's the closest that I have experientially. My kids, one time I overheard them when they were really talking, and they asked each other, why do people say that they're sorry when they hear that our parents were divorced? Right? Because my ex-wife and I getting divorced was a great thing. It was great for us. It was great for the kids. But then they meet people who are going, "Ooh, you poor you. Your parents are divorced."
Just the way, yeah.
So that's a microcosm version of what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like the assumption that there's something wrong or something's broken,
right?
You know, and it's like, and that's what I'm saying. It's I think. I was taught to respond, so I need to do this automatic thing. I've done it you know, it's part of my learning of what I had to learn. I mean, I've been doing this. I'm 12 years, however many years, 2007 deep in it. But like in 2012, I really, really dove in. And actually, you were saying something there about how, I guess, natural I seem in it or something.
Yes.
What's happened for me lately, and you were asking about this, like where I'm at in my life right now, and where I'm at is back to skateboarding. I remember skating at Sealand, and actually my friend, lifelong friend now, Ryan Anthony, we have this talk about this, and it's like skated, got into it, but then after, like, I think it was after a couple of years, and there was the older guys, and they were super sick, but then after a couple of years, whatever, and then one day I went from having 5 tricks to 30. I think I talked to Sluggo about this too. There was something after, so it's like, it's not like 1 trick a day over this many, but there was like just me going at it. And then there's like a plateau and hit the plateau. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm like better than all the old dudes within a day. Like Orion had the same thing. There was kind of like by just doing it over and over and over again. And I think what I've reached in being in circles with people, I will always learn. I will always be open to learning. I will never think I ever truly know what's going on for another person. I don't think that's even possible to actually truly know. But I've hit in a place where when I was drawing on that board and you saw me drawing on that board, like I sat, I can sit in a group with people and be me, without having to think I need to do anything. I can just be there, and I don't need to try and get people to like me. I believe I have been blessed with so many people sitting that I actually really, truly have room for the fact that each one of us is a universe unto itself, truly. There's 7 billion different realities on this, 8 billion now, different realities on this planet. I truly believe that. I will never truly understand the vastness of you over there. I don't think you will either. But the best I can do is stay curious and ask questions and try and learn. But I have such a respect for another person's experience that I've never had before, because it is truly another person's experience. It's a fucking universe over there. And I it's not caution. It's just respect. I have respect for what's going on for other people. And it's a trip, man. Like, and when I do things that are out of alignment with integrity with myself, and how when I do things that aren't in alignment with how I know what's good for me and stuff, the cost is so fucking high. Like you saw a couple of weeks ago, the cost is so high that it doesn't take long for me to, and I do it less and less and less and less and less. The cost of me stepping out of integrity with myself is fucking, it's bombastic at this point.
All right, we've done 2 hours.
Oh, really? Okay,
we
good.
did 2 hours like that. And I think that's a great place to end.
Cool.
Thank you so much for doing the show, for coming over here, and for being in your integrity. And
dude, 2 hours? What did I talk about, dude?
Nothing. We're just like that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's it?
Well, you were on the phone with Warbs. Okay, let's end on that. What was the what?
Okay,
what did he send you?
Let's do a little side piece. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what I
please.
What I did.
Please.
So, without getting to too much of in the details, what I did was I spent a lot of time in my life in the last 12 years, whatever, being really scared about finances, because I've been spending a lot of money training and whatever. And I've realized now what I'm doing moving forward, and it's different. But anyway, the thing I did that I was it's funny, I had so much fear around it. But anyway, I basically packed up and lived in my van. I built this van to live in. Friends of mine helped me build it, and I bought this sick 4-wheel drive van, and I ended up driving to the Kootenays. And it was a trip, because I was like, let's be honest, there's a part of me that's like, this is the best thing ever. And there's this other part that's just in pure terror. Like, what are you doing? You're 54 years old, and you're a loser. What are you doing? Like, just brutal. And, I've done a lot of other things in the last 12 years, whatever. So, basically, I go to the Kootenays, and I hit up Jamie. I think I hit up you. I hit up Jamie Lynn. I was going to hook up with him. He wanted to hook up. And then Jeff. And I even think I think I was in a weird kind of way looking for some work too. So I sent Jeff a message like, hey, by the way, I do like communication stuff for businesses, coaching shit, like whatever, all that stuff. All my experience in business and stuff, I can see stuff other people can't see so quick. It's just natural. I'm like, duh. And so anyway, it ended up, they didn't get back to me, and there I am in the Kootenays, and I ended up moving into, I ended up surfing, snowboarding at Whitewater, and I hadn't snowboarded in a long time like that, just without it being like a big deal. And I ended up living, and then Whitewater, I don't even know if it's like this anymore. I think they might have changed it this year, but they have no cell service and no Wi-Fi. Oh, cool. Like none. Yeah. You can't. So I was kind of bombing around, and I'll send you a couple people here and there, but it was cool that Jamie and them never got back to me, because then I kind of just went on my own and I actually reintroduced snowboarding to myself in a fucking sick way. And I was living in the parking lot and I was snowboarding. And what was a trip was I noticed that people weren't on their phones, and there was no one pulling their phones out in photos and nothing. People were actually connecting. Like, it was such a different thing than what's been happening. And then you go in the lodge and people are eating food and they're talking. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no phones. I'm like, holy shit, what's happening? So then I totally calmed down, and I'm telling myself I'm tripping out that I've talked for 2 hours, dude. I'm like, what the fuck did I even talk about? But anyway, I don't even want to tell this story, dude. I'm over it.
All right.
There you go.
We're done.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's just.
I love you, buddy. Thank you. That's fucking, I mean, it's a teaser for next time. I bring up Warbs because he was like, what are you guys doing? Franchising this shit? How many times have you been on the show?
It was a good story, but whatever. It's just like, weren't we going to talk about snowboarding or something like that? Like, what did we even talk about?
I fucking love it. I love it so much. Circles.
Okay, good.
Cool.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Sean Kearns. Special thanks to The Haven for their support on Season 9 of FNRad. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters. You guys are helping me live the dream. If you want a chance to win 1910 hoodies or long sleeves, just simply tag 1910 and 2 of your friends in any FNRad post. We've got a draw for that every month. Also, if you tag New Greens in any of our posts, we will send you a sample of New Green's superfood drink. Be sure to come back next week for more FNRad snowboarding presented by Skyview Campers and brought to you by FNRad Productions.